Hello, Fuse Nation. My name is Alex Fuse here, and you are watching another live Sports Fusion episode. I am on the phone right now with Mr. Brando, who he is a Fox Sports TV football play-by-play announcer. So, Mr. Brando, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Alex. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, and it's I just want to say thank you for coming on to my show tonight.
Happy to do it. Always a pleasure. And
Yeah.
I always admire young guys that are getting in the business. I have a special kinship with
Hmm.
all young broadcasters because I was one once too, and
Hmm.
I admire what you're doing. Just keep following your dreams.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to ask you, how exactly did you start out in this career of sports broadcasting?
Well, probably a little bit like you in the sense that I just aggressively followed my dream and
Hmm.
knew what I wanted to do. Uh, my generation, I don't know how old your parents are, but my generation was the first generation really of TV. Growing up and born in the 50s and we don't know what life without television was like,
Hmm.
although it was a luxury in the early 60s for everybody on your street to have
Hmm.
one.
Yeah.
Not everybody had a TV back in those days, but
Mhm.
my father happened to be in the TV business in my hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana, and I grew up around a television station, literally,
Mhm.
from the time I was born all the way through. And so, knowing that I was going to be involved in some way, shape, fashion, or form in television, I sort of chose sports because it was live. It was very interesting and entertaining,
Mhm.
unlike a lot of TV shows that were scripted.
Right.
You didn't know what was going to happen. And then I was probably like a lot of young guys, an athlete. Not maybe the best athlete, but an athlete. And I loved to play. And the idea of enjoying playing the game and then talking about the game at a higher level made my life just a lot of fun as a kid growing up.
Mhm.
And by the time I was, gosh, 8 or 9 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to be.
Mhm.
And my heroes in the broadcasting business were already there.
Yeah.
Leading with Kurt Gowdy. He was, he did it all. He was the American sportsman. He had a hunting and fishing show on Sunday afternoons. He did the Super Bowl. He did the World Series. He did the Final Four. There wasn't a major sporting event that he wasn't covering.
Mhm.
And then there were other great ones, obviously, Ray Scott, Lindsey Nelson, Chris Schenkel, later Keith Jackson, who, had an approach to the college game that was very unique and passionate. Being raised in Georgia, he went to school at Washington State, but he was raised a Georgia boy. And so his appreciation, I think, of the game in the Deep South was something that all of us in my part of the world identified with. And as a result, uh, I tried my best to emulate and borrow a little bit of this from this guy and a little bit of this from that guy.
Mhm.
And, I told my dad what I wanted to do for a living. And by the time I was 14, he and I were calling high school football games together. I actually gave up playing football when I was in the ninth grade, and I started calling high school football games, a father and son radio team in Monroe, Louisiana, which was just down the road from Shreveport, where I grew up.
Mhm.
And I continued doing that all the way through high school and into college, and
Wow.
didn't stop. And so by the time I was married and in a position where I had to really get my career started, I had already been on the air for 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
And I do think, even though my path was a lot different, and it would be back in those days, different from yours or
Mhm.
anyone from your generation, millennials are having to do it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But you still, the one thing that doesn't change is you have to have a passion, and you have to just never say no
Mhm.
to anything that's in front of you. Just have a dogged determination,
Mhm.
and there's a fine line, I guess, Alex, between being a pest and being just determined.
Yeah.
And you've got to sort of define what that line is. And along the way, people will help you if they know how determined you are.
Mhm.
Um, They may not help as much if you become a pest, but if they know you're determined, then you'll be surprised how many people will try to help.
Mm-hmm.
And in those years that I was coming up, you'd be amazed at how many station managers and radio station owners. One of them that I worked for, that first station in Baton Rouge in 1979, actually helped introduce me to my hero, Kurt Gowdy.
Wow.
And Kurt and I met at the '82 Final Four, the year Jordan hit the shot to beat Georgetown in the Superdome at the Final Four. That year I met him. We went to breakfast. He came on my radio show, which I was doing in New Orleans at that time, and he remained a mentor until the day he died. And I actually got a chance to work with his son, Kurt Jr., who's a producer. He actually works and runs, he's the executive producer of SNY in New York now. Kurt Jr. and I have remained good friends, and I got to tell them the story of naming my little brother Kurt after him, which was a real thrill. So, you'll be amazed at how many people in our profession will help.
Yeah.
If you just prove to them, and I would say this to any young broadcaster, prove to the people that you really do want to invest the time and effort and work into becoming really great at what you do, and you'll be amazed at how many people will help.
Yeah, thank you for that. And now, my dream job is to be a play-by-play announcer, and I know that's what you do for Fox Sports. So what's the mindset going into a college football or basketball game, and how long does it take you to prepare to call a basketball or football game, and what do you have to do to call one?
Well, first and foremost, and this is maybe another one of those things to think about as you're on your journey, and that is the amount of homework or preparation that you have to put in is minimized if it's a way of life. If you follow the game, whether it's, I read in your bio you want to do Yankees games. Well, I'm sure you know everything about the New York Yankees. Well, continue to know everything. Continue to follow your team, and then you continue to follow everything that's going on in Major League Baseball. I was certainly that way with every sport, and I did baseball, a lot of it. A lot of people don't realize that, especially guys your age, but I did. I did the College World Series 7 of 9 years when I was at ESPN. I did the Atlanta Braves when they won the World Series in '96, and 95. The Yankees clipped them in '96, as you know. Yeah. But '94, '95, '96, I did Atlanta Braves baseball. And, I think in a lot of ways, our business it's not really a job if you look at it comparatively speaking to other vocations. It's really not a job; it's a way of life. Right. And if you approach the business as a way of life, then you're already doing your homework. You're already doing your preparation. Every day you're preparing. But football is a lot more regimented in the sense that you're doing different teams every week. You have to prepare for those teams and meet with coaches and players. Usually go into the site of the game on Thursday. The road team that you'll be doing the game with will likely be on the phone with a conference call with you with their coaches, maybe a player or two, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. I work on my boards throughout the course of the week. I like to do my boards myself. I do get a little bit of help in terms of statistical data and trends and that kind of thing from statisticians that work with me. But in terms of just identifying players and knowing who lines up where, that's a byproduct of looking at a lot of tape. For the first game, we have Missouri and West Virginia. Now, it's their first game. Spencer Tillman and I will be doing it, but I'll go back and I'll look at some Missouri tape from a year ago. I'll look at some West Virginia tape from a year ago. And then get as much information on where they are now with their programs. They've got a new coach at Missouri taking over for Gary Pinkel. What will be his signature approach to the game? There's a lot of storylines there we have to tell. And with Dana Holgerson at West Virginia, he's been there long enough that Mountaineer fans are thinking they should be competing for the championship in the Big 12. So there's a little more pressure on them to win this year. Maybe win 9 or 10 and go to a bowl game. So those different storylines and how Skylar Howard, their veteran quarterback, does is going to be something to take into consideration. So we're still a month out from doing
Right.
this game, but I'm already thinking about it.
Yeah.
Is my point. And the week of the game, we'll take care of what we need to take care of. But my boards, my two deeps, and all the information that I need will be in place by the time I land in Morgantown on that Thursday before the September 3rd game. And it's like that every week. It's a bit more regimented because it's football and you're dealing with a lot of variables. Home teams could have as many as 100 guys on the team with walk-ons. So, you have to be prepared. There's no substitute for preparation. Absolutely no substitute for it. But the thing that you have to be almost more wary of is sometimes you can overdo it. And then because you did all this prep work, believe that you've got to get all that information in. And that's a big mistake. If you don't edit yourself and exercise good judgment in a broadcast, then you can get into some trouble. So in a lot of ways, it's about preparation, and then it's about the judgment to understand when to back off and allow some of that preparation to land on the editing room floor.
In your opinion, Mr. Brando, what is the hardest part of your job with Fox Sports?
Travel. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
I think over time, I've been at it now a long time, 9 years at ESPN, 3 years at Turner, 18 years at CBS, and now I'm in my third year at Fox.
Wow.
And I think that, the travails of getting into and out of airports in today's crazy world with the FAA and NTSB, that's probably, I highly recommend any young broadcaster get TSA pre-check. It is an absolute must when you're trying to make flights, especially if you're in the middle of basketball season and you're trying to get from one game to the next. I might do, during hoop season, as many as 3 games a week. And in the dead of winter, traveling into places like Providence, Rhode Island, or trying to get out of there to get to Pittsburgh might not be the easiest thing in the world to do. So, and I think also as you get older, your patience and your tolerance can become an issue when you're on the road. Just about everybody I know that is retired, depending upon when they decided to hang it up. And a lot of guys in my end of the business, as you know, they don't retire. They're told when it's over. Brent Musburger is 78. Vern Lundquist, God bless him, is 75, and he's still going at it at CBS. These are real good friends of mine. They love what they do, and just don't see retirement as an option. And I love that. I think that that just shows how much we love what we do. But more oftentimes than not, whether it's Vin Scully with the Dodgers, who you see now, during his retirement, he's done what? He's stopped flying to away games. He's been doing the home games, but not the away games. I think more oftentimes than not, whether the guy gets out of the business when he's 70 or he gets out of the business when he's 85, the reason he gets out is because he's worn weary of travel.
Yeah, and I have 2 more questions before I wrap up this interview. One question is, who has been your favorite person you've worked with over your career?
Oh wow, that's a really tough one, Alex, because I have some favorites, real good friends in this business, some of whom actually do what I do, and so we didn't necessarily always work together, but we were kind of connected at one time or another. But I can honestly say that there's not any one person that I ever called a game with, football, basketball, or baseball, that I actually did not like. I've always enjoyed working with everyone I've worked with. And I've worked with a lot of people. When you've been at it as long as I have, that means there's a lot of different partnerships along the way. But I would obviously have to pick out some legends. I mean, in college basketball, there's not one great commentator that I didn't work with. I still work with Bill Raftery. I used to work with the great Al McGuire and Dick Vitale. Al McGuire probably was the most genuine and enjoyable guy that I ever worked with in any sport as it relates to teaching me a lot about life.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Valvano was that way too. I mean, he was one of the most influential guys that I ever worked with. And Jimmy worked with me. His first games at ESPN when he left NC State were with me. And I played in his golf tournament, got to know him very, very well before his passing. In football, gosh, a lot of great ones that I've worked with through the years. I mean, a lot. Paul McGuire at ESPN, who went on to do Super Bowls at NBC. Paul did the USFL with me 3 years ago. When Herschel Walker was playing for the New Jersey Generals, I worked with him, and he was one of the all-time greats. In baseball, Ernie Johnson Sr., the father of Ernie Jr., who you see on TNT, Ernie was Mr. Brave, and all those great broadcasters of Turner's era, when the Braves were going to all those World Series and winning their division 14 straight years, whether it was Skip Carey, Don Sutton, Joe Simpson, all those guys, they all just genuflected. Pete Van Leeuwen, they all genuflected in the room to Ernie, and I got a chance to ride his coattails for a few years. But and in my earliest days at ESPN, John Saunders was a dear friend, and we worked SportsCenter together. We came in at the same time. He now hosts sports reporters for ESPN. It's been over 30 years. I think second only to Bob Lee and Chris Berman. John has been there the longest, and we literally came into Bristol the same week.
Wow.
And became great friends. Our families are great friends. He's got all girls. I've got all girls. And we've remained very close through the years. But I got to tell you, the guy that I'm paired with now on Fox, that I was with in the studio, and I'm sure you remember watching him with me at CBS on the College Football Today, Spencer Tillman, is probably one of the most admirable young guys. I say young. He's 10 years my junior. I think he just turned 50 not long ago. Spencer is a wonderful human being, just a great, great guy, fun to work with. And when Joel Klatt last year, I had worked with him in my first year at Fox. When he got moved up to work with Gus Johnson last year, I was asked by the people at Fox, actually, who would you like to work with? And I knew that Spencer was available, and I said, Spencer Tillman is somebody I really think a lot of. I would love for you guys to talk to him. Well, they did, and they hired him, and this will be our 18th year in the last 19 seasons. I was only without him 1 year in almost the last 20 years when I left CBS, and he finished up his last year at CBS. His contract had 1 year left after I was gone. So to be partnered up with him for the foreseeable future, calling college football at Fox is really a thrill, because we really know each other well. The chemistry is automatic, and that's something, Alex, in our business. Chemistry is not something that you actually work on or develop. It's either there or it's not. And I've found that to be true through the years. And I had it with all those guys that I mentioned, especially the guys in basketball that I got along with. Larry Conley was another one in basketball for years, played at Kentucky, and if you were a fan of college basketball in the South, you certainly knew who Larry was. But Raft and Al McGuire and Dick, all those guys I had chemistry with, and I have the same kind of chemistry, I think, with Spencer. And so it's just, it's two guys having fun, like you would have like you'd be talking to somebody at the 19th hole at the golf course, or in your home if your best friend was in a Barker Lounger watching the game. I believe that that's what makes a comfortable broadcast, dialogue between the two people that are really listening and learning from one another. And I get that feeling from Spence every time we're together.
Yeah. And okay, Mr. Brando, before we wrap up this interview, I want you to put on your fan hat. So with entering in the college football season, you mentioned it starts in about a month. Who's your favorites, and who do you think needs to work on their skills this year? So who's your favorite, and who are your least favorites this year?
Well, by the way, other big lesson I try to tell young broadcasters, you got to check in your fan hat at the door when you go into our business.
Yeah.
In fact, I think probably the thing I notice most is, especially in this day and age of social networking, I can't say anything without a fan being mad at me. So when a fan says, "Why do you hate my team?" I tell them because I'm telling you what you don't want to hear.
Right.
My job is to be objective, and I've never had a problem checking in my objectivity at the door. Now, that isn't to say that, I'm not going to give my picks and prognostications. I'll do that. For years when I had my radio show, which was opinion-based, I did that all the time, and I still do that. I put out my top 10 yesterday, and I given out my Final Four for college football about a month ago. I like Clemson this year with Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to win the Heisman, and I think Clemson's going to win the national championship.
Okay.
I think Oklahoma's going to have another banner year. Now, they've got to get past Ohio State, and they have to get past Houston early, very early. 2 big games for them in the month of September. But if they win those 2 games, they're going to be in a big, lofty perch going into the Big 12 season. And I like their schedule, where they play their games. So I think Oklahoma is my number 2 pick. Number 3, I like Michigan. I think Jim Harbaugh, despite who his quarterback is, I think is going to have a great year. I like their schedule. Now, they do play at the old Horseshoe to close out the year, but I think the Buckeyes, by the time they play that game, are going to have lost a couple of games and may not be themselves.
Okay.
So, and a lot of times that impacts the way, the college game goes. It's such an emotional game. A lingering residue can really hurt you. By example, last year when Alabama beat LSU and Leonard Fournette was shut down, LSU was 7-0, and then they went on a 3-game skid right after that. They emotionally could not recover from losing that game the way they did to Alabama. I think this year LSU, though, will get revenge, and I believe that they will, because of their schedule. They've got most of their tough games in Baton Rouge. They play Ole Miss at home. They play Alabama at home. The Arkansas game could be problematic for them at the end of the year, but the SEC could produce a two-loss champion this year. It's so competitive, especially in the Western Division with Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and LSU, all really, really very good teams. Alabama's loaded. A lot of people always think because of their dominance, winning 4 of the last 7 national titles, that they should be, yearly the pick. That you should never doubt Saban. Well, it's not about doubting Saban. It's just at some point in time, schedule will catch up to you, and I think this year that happens to Alabama. They've got to go to Oxford, Mississippi, September 17th. They've got to go to LSU November the 5th. They've got to go to Arkansas in October. I mean, that is just way too much, in my opinion. Oh, and I left out Tennessee, who probably is going to be the best team in the Southeastern Conference's Eastern Division, and probably the team with Josh Dobbs at quarterback that mirrors Deshaun Watson more than anybody. And you saw what Watson did to Alabama in the championship game last year. So those are my picks. I like Clemson to win it all, but I like Oklahoma, Michigan, and LSU to be the 4 teams that make it to the college football playoff. As far as teams that are going to have tough years, I see Oregon struggling this year because Washington's going to be much better. So I think Oregon's going to slip a little bit. Another surprise team in the minds of some, in my mind, would be Michigan State. No one ever wants to give them their due. I think D'Antonio continues to do a really good job with them. Stanford, a lot of people are expecting big things from Christian McCaffrey returning, a big favorite for the Heisman. But I think without Kevin Hogan at quarterback, they're going to struggle a little bit offensively. That young man meant a lot to that team. So I think some of the teams out west, like USC, like Oregon, and Stanford, are not going to be as good as they were a year ago, largely because they lost some really quality people at quarterback. Josh Rosen at UCLA is probably the best that they have in that league right now. We'll see how well they do against Texas A&M in the opener. But I don't see a team out of the Pac-12 challenging to get to the college football playoff. There are a lot of good teams out there, a lot of balance, but I don't see a dominating kind of team coming out of that league this year.
Mr. Brando, I want to say thanks again for coming on my Sports Fusion episode today. And where can the Fuse Nation find you on Twitter to follow along during the college football and basketball season?
Just go right to @TimBrando. You can follow me there. And easy to remember. And during the course of the season, from time to time, if you go to my old, one of the things I kept in play was my old radio show's Facebook page. So
Okay.
I still have the Tim Brando Facebook page, and on occasion I'll put some college football posts and random thoughts and that kind of thing. People want to follow me there too.
Okay. I want to say thanks again for coming on the Sports Fusion episode, and hope to have you on again soon.
Well, remember to keep your eye on the prize and make sure you work hard enough to make those dreams of yours come alive.
Thank you.
You bet, bud.
Okay, Fuse Nation, you just heard it from Mr. Brando, and go back, watch all my other episodes, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will see you at 3 p.m. with an interview with the general manager of the Paw Sox AAA Red Sox. Thanks for watching, Fuse Nation. See you later.